All right, looking good. Cool. Here we are, back to streaming. I'm going to jump straight into it. No intro needed. I mean, I've got that little video that I recorded earlier this week, kind of explaining what I'm doing here, but the gist of it is I published this library, or I'm sorry, not this library, but this community file 4 years ago, and it is in desperate need of a glow up. I'm really pleased that it still gets the number of downloads it does each week, but it's really not taking advantage of Figma's latest and greatest features. The whole reason I built this was because a lot of browser mockups at the time, where folks would want to put in like portfolio work or use this for prototyping, weren't using auto layout, which I think at the time was like the big brand new feature. So the big attraction, I think, to my file over other community files like this was that you could do this. You could move the tabs around, taking advantage of auto layout. But you can see like Firefox doesn't even look like this anymore. And we're on like Chrome version 128 at this point. So there's been many updates to these browsers since then, and many updates to Figma. So giving it a glow up. And the hope is that by the end of this stream series, I will have that file available for purchase, because I think given the amount of work that I'm going to put into it, it's something that I want to be compensated for. But the point of this stream is that if you would like to build this for yourself and not pay me for the download, you've got that option. I'm going to put all my cards on the table here, all the tricks. There's not going to be really any tricks, but just the whole process will be available to you for free. So I have actually already started a bit of planning here. I want to plan out what variable collections I need, because I'd like to use modes to be able to switch between things like Chrome, Firefox, Safari. Like each of these is going to be a mode. I also want to be able to use modes for color theming, obviously, and I think modes for switching between operating system as well. So in total, that is 7 modes. So need to plan out the variable collections, and because colors are going to change based on, I think color is going to be a big thing that changes between modes, between browser and then of course color theme. I want to be really well prepared for what is going to feed into what. And so I've got, I have a blog post about this, about doing this with validation styling and color theming. I want to use that same technique of aliasing things in, but I kind of have a hunch that like direction matters. So if we're looking at variable collections, I know I need a collection for browsers, right? Because I need to be able to have modes for Chrome, Safari, and Firefox. This is kind of my janky setup or mock-up of what like that variable collection window looks like, right? And I'm already trying to organize my variables here, which I'm using a monowidth font to say like, this is a single variable that I'm going to have, but then when we get back into inter font here, that's like a group for variables, and I've got them kicked over, indented in to represent nesting here. So we've got Chrome, Safari, Firefox. I know that I'm going to have a tab component because I want these things to be interactive. I kind of want this mockup to be prototype ready. That's something else. I want to talk about the features, like what will you be able to do with this? I want the mode switching for all these things, and I want this thing to be prototypable, right? Not every single part of, I think, the browser is going to be prototyped out. There's actually quite a lot of complicated little windows and things that are possible here, but I want the basics of like using a browser, right? Like opening a new tab. What do we have here? Yeah, opening and closing tabs, typing in the URL bar, and that's going to require things like, all right, we need a hover state for this, and like, is this the active tab? And when you have an inactive tab, at least in Chrome, for these little feet here, like you need to know, hey, is the neighbor on the left or on the right, is that tab active or inactive? So anyway, I'm going to have a tab component, and I'm going to need to define for those interactive states, like what is the background of an active and an inactive tag, when it's just at rest, when it's being hovered on. What about the foreground? Foreground being the label, the icon. Do those colors change, right? Now, when we get to managing the typography here, the typographic attributes of that label, the font size, the line height, the letter spacing, this is not going to flow into the color theme collection the way these color variables are, right? So I think this is the setup I want to do, but I kind of want to use this session this morning to plan out like what would it look like reversed out, because right now my hunch is that I want to take this color variable. By the way, that's what these prefixes are. N is for number, C is for color, T is for strings of text, which maybe that should be S, but I'm not going to change it at this point. And then I've got eventually somewhere here, yeah, B for Boolean, right? Just for my own planning. I didn't want to get too fancy complicated with this. The colon is just to separate, like this is where the variable name starts, and then these colons are my own. Like that's my own naming convention that I want to follow. So background default living under tab is going to be like this white color, right? And well, it will be for Chrome. For Safari, it's going to be different, right? In fact, it's actually probably going to be a gradient. Oh, and I hope I can put gradients in variables. I've not even done that yet. We will find out if that's possible. Firefox, it's going to be something else, right? And then I've got those organized under a color theme group of dark, right? So all of this is going to get repeated under light as well. So what's going to happen here is this is the tab's background fill color in dark mode. Chrome, Safari, Firefox, right? We take this, we come down to the color theme collection, and it gets aliased in here. Drag that over. And it gets aliased in the dark mode slot here in that variable collection. The light mode one will go here. So that's the setup that I think I want to follow. Now, I first thought when I was thinking about this project was, oh, okay, and then I'm going to have to do another round of that, right? I'll have to have color theme alias into operating system. But thinking about it more, I actually don't think so. I think we're only going to weave those two collections together, really, because switching between Mac mode and Windows mode is really just a matter of, I mean, you can see it here in Figma's interface, right? Like, it's really just about the window controls. I don't expect the interface to be different across operating system. I think it's really just like Mac has these three little dots, Windows has the same, minimize, full screen versus like smaller window, and then closing the window. Those live over here on the right. And I think that's it. And in that case, I think we can just show and hide those things with Booleans. I don't know why I have a third one here. So Mac window controls will be on in Mac mode and off in Windows mode. And same for Windows window controls. Off in Mac mode, on in Windows mode. We're also going to need to do some stuff with like the window frames. I have some screenshots over here. Like if you are in Mac mode, I expect that this shadow is probably going to, we have to have a shadow here. This is Mac's treatment of Windows. God, that's going to get like kind of wild. And then there's also this like really subtle, kind of like transparent stroke going on. You can see there's this kind of, it's giving it this kind of like a bevel almost. The rounded corners too, Windows might be not as round. The shadow might not be as dramatic. We'll have to find out. So those are the things that I'm looking at. So yeah, we've got each of the browsers here in dark mode. So that's where we could start when we're ready to start building. But again, I want to explore this variable collection setup version A. And I want to explore what it might look like if we switch it out. If color theme is the first one that we start with, and then color theme gets aliased into browsers. And then I'll look at these side by side and see if I can spot any advantages or disadvantages to go in one way or the other, because I really do believe that like the direction, like I think there's, when you're using this method of aliasing, it's not really, it's like the same aliasing you would do in any other context. I got to come up with a better way to talk about that. But how do I want to describe that? I think that there could be a path that is more effortful and one that is less effortful, and also one that just like makes more sense, like would fit a mental model better than the other. So we will see. Okay, so color theme. If we're reversing out what I was doing before, that means we need to organize things like so. We need to have a browser group, because that is going to be the next collection that we alias into. And then the next group down is actually going to be what those different browsers are. So we need Chrome. Oops. We need Chrome, Firefox, and Safari. Then within those, that's where we would get our components, right? So what does our tab component look like in the context of light mode, the context of dark mode, in the context of Chrome? We're kind of planning ahead, right? So let's take, again, these same, I'm going to move this up and scooch the indentation over. So what does the background of our tab at rest look like for Chrome in light mode and dark mode? So we would have this for tab. We'd have this for icon button. I'm going to actually copy these in. And I'm actually just going to stick with those two. And so then, because I think this is actually icon button, by the way, being, we've got a few buttons here, especially in some of like our menus. Like I would call this the little star for bookmarking something in, what do we got? This is Firefox. That would be an icon button. And let's remember too, I actually want to, I'm going to just trace over this with that color, because I don't want to be distracted by the web page. I'm going to lock that rectangle down. I don't want to be distracted by like Google's interface, which is the address. You can tell that I punched in for each of these. Okay, so that's covered up. So yeah, we're really only interested in the browser. So let's remember that. Lock those down. I think I actually have some examples. Oops. Hold on. Sorry, I'm going to go to my intro scene here, because there's a window that I want to bring up on my desktop, and I don't remember where it went. Oh, okay. I've got them all over on a different desktop. Apologies. Just doing some rearranging here. Further rearranging. Please hold. I wanted to show, there we go, the browser windows themselves. Let me get myself out of the way here. So, for example, in Chrome here, when you are typing, like if I start typing in my name, right, there's these other little icon buttons as well. Be able to like clear things out. Where else? Also in like this menu here, which I don't think I'm going to be prototyping. I'm not going to go this far. But I do want to, if we have that prototyping experience of, hey, you can type in the URL bar, like cute kittens, right? All of these options come up, right? And if you have other tabs open, there's a button in here like switch to tabs. So I think that that would be necessary. to achieve the prototype readiness feature that I want for this. Where was I going with that? Oh, I think just explaining, yeah, like, what do you mean you need an icon button? But yeah, we're gonna have URL bar that has interactive state, so it should be a component. The type ahead menu, right? That's that when you're typing in the URL bar, that menu drops down, trying to autocomplete, right? Your what you're typing, save you a bit of time. Okay, so we've got our components there. Yeah, and then I'm actually going to delete all of this except for those two. So if we have our browsers sorted out here, Chrome, Firefox, Safari, and we define ahead of time, like this is what Chrome's tab looks like in light mode, we alias those in to our browser collection. That is when we can organize things by light. And no, we don't even need to do that. We don't need to do that because, so I'm going to delete that one. How did we do it over here? This is where it gets like really kind of tricky for me to keep track of. So we've got light and dark mode across the browsers. Oh, and then I had like a hunch that I needed to start organizing it by operating system, but I don't think I do. I think we can, yeah, even here, this is not quite necessary. We don't need Mac there, and this can be indented or outdented, I guess. So same here. We just, again, take our components. Don't need these. This doesn't need to be nearly as indented as it is. And we just start defining those, right? Because we will already have light and dark mode figured out, but of course, now we're figuring out browser. So like we have tab in Chrome figured out. We would just need to map that here, and then tab in Firefox, right? Because this as a group of variables is going to get repeated within this group here. So then it's just a matter of mapping those in. Operating system is the same. Okay, so which one of these? I think it's the same amount of work. There is something kind of more appealing, though, about starting with the color theme, like getting Chrome figured out, getting all of Chrome figured out in light and dark mode, right? Because if I start over here, it would be like getting all of the tabs figured out in dark mode for Chrome, Safari, like getting all the browsers figured out. Like here's our tab across all of our browsers in a certain color mode. So I would be able to, like, one of the first milestones I could reach in this streaming process is like, all right, I've got my tab component, and I can tell you what it looks like in dark mode across all of these browsers. Over here, I would say I've got my tab component. I can tell you what it looks like for Chrome in light and dark mode. This feels like more like smaller bites to take, which I'm kind of attracted to because I would like to be able to, I think it'll be motivating for me to have kind of a checklist here, almost use this potentially as a checklist to say like, you know, let's actually start making one here. So we've got, well, actually, I've already got one going. This is the other thing. Besides planning out the variable collections, and this is variable setup B or version B, I also have an inventory that I was taking of the components that I'm going to need, and also things that aren't going to be components, but will still be important layers to name. So again, tabs, and I'm also trying to plan like what properties I need for those. So tab is going to have a state property, an active property, an active neighbor property. Again, that's going to be important for Chrome, for Google Chrome, because this tab is inactive, but its neighbor is active. And so this tab is responsible, I believe, if I select this little guy, yeah, this little foot that appears to belong to the active tab is actually a layer inside of the inactive tab, right? So maybe I can revisit that setup, but I think this was like the better setup. So anyway, that's why these two different properties. I'm also already thinking ahead of like, what kind of, do I want to use variants? Do I want to use component properties? And if I'm using component properties or variants, what am I doing? Like state is going to be a drop-down select. Favicon is going to be a component property, and I'm using the swap property, so you can swap in whatever you want. Icon button, I already explained that. The URL bar is, if it has a hover state, it needs to be a component. So we've got that. I don't think the URL bar can be inactive, so I actually might not need, like it can't be, oh wait, that's not true. I was thinking about enabled and disabled, but yeah, like if I go back over here, like when you start, so here's our hover state, right? When I start typing, like this is it being active, like this URL bar has been activated. I've got a blue ring. In Safari, same deal, blue ring, and that triggers this like type ahead menu, this autocomplete menu. Firefox, slightly different treatment. But yeah, that's what I mean by active. The type ahead menu, that was exactly what I had displayed here, right? This is the menu. It's like a big container. Within that are going to be menu items. So if I start typing cute kittens, this is a menu item, this is a menu item, this is a menu item. Okay, this is going to be, oh my gosh. But yeah, these are two different versions of the same component. They have different compositions. Let's try it for Chrome. Cute kittens. I know that Chrome has a similar thing where there's like more of like a richer preview. Cute kittens. Similar. Oh, hey, icon buttons, right? There's an icon button. Yeah, so switch to this tab is going to come up. Show all downloads. Ooh, yes, that was something else too. I think if this all goes well, and I'm having fun with this, you know when you download something in Chrome and then that little menu comes up from the bottom and you get like that button that like can take you to your file browser and show you the location of a download. I think that could be good to have for prototyping. I don't know if there's prototypers out there that like need that, but it seems like a pretty common, like downloading things from the internet, pretty common thing to do. Could be useful for especially people who are building like desktop apps to prototype out that experience. So we've got show all downloads button and then all the different icons that we need, right? Like I need the little X for closing tabs. I need the little puzzle piece for extensions for Chrome. The new tab, right? This little plus sign, right? Even Figma's got one here because it's basically like a browser wrapper. The side panel, the back, forward, refresh, bookmark, URL is secure, the little lock, right? Just the globe as like a grid, internet, chevrons for things that can open and close, adding tab groups. I have two of those. URL unsecure. Let's put that up here. Sharing, folders, user profiles. Yeah. So I'm going to need a ton of different icons. Finding those. I think when I first did this resource, I like traced these with the pen tool by hand because that was the easiest way to get a hold of them. I will probably end up doing the same thing. Things that are not going to be components. The bookmarks bar, right? Like this entire, if I trace it, and let's get rid of some of that. If I can trace it here, like this whole thing, this is going to be a layer. It does not need to be a component because it is not interactive. I'm going to try and get my brand pink color here to better highlight. That's going to be a component, or not a component. It's going to be a frame. This is going to be a frame. The bookmarks bar that appears below, that's a frame. Tab bar, bookmark bar, URL bar. URL input. No, I decided that's a component. Window controls. Yes, there's going to be, of course, we will need to corral these window controls in some sort of frame because we're going to need to be able to target the visibility of that. Depending on if we're in Mac mode, it needs to be shown. If we're in Windows mode, this one in particular needs to be hidden because these are Mac window controls. The downloads bar, right? That's something in Chrome. It appears down here. And again, that's something that we can set up a variable for. That's going to make it really prototype friendly. Like, you know, you'd be able to, on your web page mockup that you put in here, if there's a download button, you can say on click, you know, and then after delay, if we want to really simulate real life, like after that delay, I need you to show the downloads bar, and then maybe this has its own little animation, right? Because like you usually see that cute little, especially for, I think in Mac, like the file will kind of like pop out of the web page and into that bar, and then there's this little like circle loading animation to show that your download is in progress. And then once it's there, you've kind of got that little button within here with the file name, and that menu that gives you options to like show in Finder or all the rest of the stuff. So that's going to be a layer, not necessarily a component. The button inside would be a component because again, we have hover states, interactive states. We'll have an icon button in here because that bar is something that can be closed, can be dismissed. So, okay. So that feels like a really good starting point. I think I've got my decision of, and I'm glad I did this. I think what we're going to do is go with setup B because this makes more sense to me. I want to start in the context of color theme. I want to start building my tab component, thinking about what tab looks like in the context of Google Chrome, in the context of light and dark mode, and then kind of do this in batches. Because I think what this lets me do is I can take this variable group and when I'm ready, duplicate it and then do it for Firefox. And that is going to let me like stick with kind of one browser at a time. Because if I was over here and I was doing tab in the context of dark mode, I would have to, it would go a lot slower, right? Like, because I have 3 modes to consider instead of 2. And I'd have to switch between them. Like, okay, how does Chrome, like, what is the Chrome corner radius? What is the Safari corner radius for tab? What about Firefox? But I can already tell you, this has some advantages. Okay. Sorry, y'all. This one is a lot. This is going to be a lot of talking and planning and not a lot of building. So when we talk about something like corner radius, Firefox has all corners rounded, right? Because this tab is kind of like floating detached from the next level down that contains like the URL bar and like back, forward, refresh. Chrome, it appears to be attached as like one big piece, almost like a file folder. Oh, I did not notice this little treatment before. I think that's maybe new. Let's go back to the old one. Hold on. Yeah, that used to not be like that. It used to just be squared off, but that's kind of cute. Anyway, so we can't just say corner radius, right? Like Chrome's is going to be a lot rounder than Firefox's, but we're going to need to split it out. So I think maybe that could be an approach that we take even if we start over here, because if I'm working only in Chrome and I'm not like thinking about Firefox yet, I could probably get away with, I'm going to need a corner radii guy in here. I would probably do corner radii. I'll probably, do TL, like top left, top right, bottom left, bottom right. I think I just need to be really granular because this will give me the option, even though in Chrome, like top left, and top right are going to be the same value. Bottom left and bottom right are going to be the same value. In Firefox, they'll all be the same value. So actually, what I'm trying to figure out is like, I'd like to have as few variables as possible for like efficiency. But I do think there's something to be said about like the granularity, because let's look at just corner radii, 4 tabs in oh, Safari. I don't have it here in the screenshot because yeah. So okay, we'll do cute kitten, and then we will add, is this how you add a tab? New tab. Cute alligator. Oh, that actually is very cute. So, okay, so in Safari, and let's actually, oh, this is going to be another thing. When you hover on a tab, you get this little, you get a preview. Oh my God. That could be helpful for prototyping. That's going to be something else. So let's quickly add that to the list. I'm getting a little distracted, but it's okay. That's going to be a component, because not only is this interactive, actually, no, it's not. It just kind of, like when you try to interact with that little preview, it just goes away. Interesting. In fact, it's something that could belong to the tab component, and it could belong to the inactive tab component. Well, the active one gets one too. Like if I hover on this. Yeah. Oh, and memory usage. That's, Anyway, back to corner radii. Or let's put our list item in here. So we want this like tab mini preview. We will leave it there. It might not have any properties. Other than I'm not getting so in the weeds that I'm doing like, oh, I want to be able to edit this string, and so I'm going to have like a component string property. Like we can deal with that, but I do want to start defining like states. Anyway, back to Safari with the corner radii. If I come back here and I grab a screenshot of that and I paste that in, and again, I'm going to take rectangle 3 here, put it on top. I don't want to be distracted by what's in Google. Okay, lock that down. So in Safari's case, no rounded corners. And check this out. Oh my gosh. So we're going to need independent strokes in certain places too. So both for Safari and Firefox, all corner radii will be the same value. But in Google, we need to have a different corner radii for top and bottom. So, okay, so maybe this is where it's good to do some planning. So this could actually just be top, bottom, and that lets us eliminate 2 variables that no longer need to be managed. Is it worth doing that for each of these other bits of interface? So we've got tab here, right? Maybe we should. Maybe that should be the task here, because it's easier for me to plan this stuff out here in this like temporary space and then go in, even though I might only catch like 80% of the stuff, I still think it's worth it. Okay, let's do it. So I'm going to abandon setup A. I'm going to put it not doing this. This is going to be the new name. And we will take this and move it over. Okay, so thinking about our tab, variables. I'm going to actually need to double all of these because we need not only this stuff for we need to split it again among active and inactive. So I'm going to take that, and I think I want to append that before foreground and background, and then this would be inactive, right? Like, are we on this tab or not? Are we viewing this tab? That's active and inactive, and then the background and the foreground. You might be wondering, why didn't I put, like, why did I decide to put active before foreground and background? And I'm trying to group things almost like not creating another folder. Actually, that maybe that should be another folder because there's quite a few things here. Oh, that's a good question, actually. Like, when do you repeat something across a series of variables as like part of the name, like I've done here with active and inactive, versus make it another group where I indent this further and I have active, right? And I take these away. And then I do the same here. Active, and I want to paste this inside. 0 padding. Inactive. Yeah, I'd be curious from naming convention nerds when they choose to do that. And that means corner radii, those can actually come out and be part of this list, but these are each going to need to be wrapped in auto layout so I can push them underneath of tab, because corner radii is not going to change across active and inactive states. These groups are only going to be for managing color because that's what we're targeting, right? But these number variables for corner radii are just going to exist and across light and dark mode, right? Like, and these aren't going to get aliased in. Like corner radii, well, oh no, that's not true. That's something to think about. Actually, these don't belong here. That's something else. Okay, this is another good reason why we're doing all this planning. So I do need to define the corner radii for tabs, but those values aren't going to change across light and dark mode. You're not going to have like Chrome's tabs being like corner radii 8 or whatever isn't going to change when you're in Chrome light and Chrome dark. This information, oops, I'm going to go up one level, cut those onto my clipboard. That belongs to the browser collection. Oh, geez. Paste that in here. It belongs to tabs in the browser variable collection because corner radii does change across Chrome, Safari, and Firefox. And we want to do the same grouping here, right? I'm going to, we're going to need a tab for active, inactive, same deal. Yeah, background and foreground. Great. Okay. Good. Good. So here, yeah, we need to remember we're dealing with color themes. Most of our variables in here are going to be color theme, which same for the label. Well, no. The label's also going to need to change. And that's not even in the right spot, I think. Let me put those to my clipboard. Like tab is going to have tabs have labels. We do need to define what is the font, what is the font size? What is the letter spacing? We do not have paragraph spacing here. We need not worry about that. And the colors are going to change. In light mode, it will be a darker color, the label. In dark mode, it will be a lighter color. And it may change color based on whether that tab is active or inactive. Like, let's look at these. Okay, in this case, for Chrome, it's not changing. Still, I want to be prepared for that. I want to anticipate that a bit. So active, I mean, that's going to get covered by foreground here, but oh, yeah, that's going to get covered by foreground. Same with the icons. We may need to split those. There might be browsers where the color used for the label is different from the color used from these other foreground elements. Like actually, if we go back to our screenshots and we look at tabs, I should duplicate that cute alligator. Hopefully the same. Oh, and what does this look like? Yeah, when this is crunched down. I'm looking at it's so slight, you might not be able to see it, but like there's this kind of gradient fade where the label is disappearing behind this close button, and it increases, it has to increase or get pushed this way when I hover over it, because this button, this close button, becomes interactive. So it needs to push out. I don't think they... Oh, I wanted to take screenshots over here. That's what we're doing. So that was Firefox. Let's grab Chrome. Delete these. Oops. The zoom controls on my mouse that I set up have like stopped working. So I'm like having to use keyboard shortcuts for now. Not the end of the world, but not muscle memory. Okay, so what were we working on just now? Right, the foreground elements of tabs. Yes. And the font size, the font family, all of that, again, is going to belong to browsers the same way that that the corner radii do. I think I want to indent these. Yeah, frame 12. Push this in. Jeez Louise. Not what I wanted. What the heck? Weird settings. Oh, weird settings. Fixed height? No. Okay. Need that one. Okay, what I'm trying to do is get these indented to make it more clear what belongs to what group. There we are. Okay. So we've got active, inactive, and then when we get into the context of what do our tabs look like in these different browsers, that's where we can start defining this is the font size that Chrome uses. This is the line height, but the color of that label is defined earlier in foreground, active, inactive. Jeez Louise, what is up with all these, like, actually, I think I want these to be filling. Yeah. Holy moly. Okay. Good, fill. Okay. So that's where the labels live. What else? I guess we need to think about like icons, right? Yeah, I guess this is kind of like becoming a component, like a tab planning session. So let's look at the anatomy here. We're going to have some sort of like nested favicon, right? Like what web page are you visiting? Let's bring in the little favicon for that, and then also closing the tab. And we're going to have probably different size and shape favicons depending on what browser we're in. Like if we, oh, I should just group these. That's the way. So for example, if we put Firefox and Chrome side by side, so things that we can see, if I set that to like 50%, okay, so something you can see with like the X's here is that Chrome's look to be squared off and a little bit thicker. Firefox's are thinner and maybe rounded. Favicon-wise, just about the same. Shape, and now I'm looking at the text. Obviously, they're using a different font. I think Firefox's is maybe a hair smaller, right? They're going to have different padding. We need to think about padding on all sides. And again, we might be able to get away with like left, right, top, bottom. Yeah. Okay. So let's put that back down here, set that back to 100, come over here. Again, padding is going to be something like corner radius, where it'll be a number variable, and top, bottom, left, right. Oh, no, this is how I wanted it. We'll do TMB. For the favicons, that's going to be another set of number variables. So we'll do, but I think they're always going to be square. We should be able to count on that. So that's just going to be 1, and it will be favicon dimension, right? So it'll be like, maybe in Chrome, it looked like it was a little bit bigger, like 10 by 10. And maybe in Firefox, it's like 8 by 8, right? So that's just one number variable that we can do. Tab is going to contain so we were going to have icon buttons in general, but I also want to have icon button close tab. Like that's a specific icon button that's going to exist across all of them. So that's going to be another that we'll need to plan for, and it's going to nest inside of tab. The other thing that tabs have, again, this like fade out. So I guess we could call that like, it's like, well, let's look real quick. Like, how do variables handle, I'm going to start a fresh collection here. If we do a color variable, can we do gradients? Okay, so that's going to be interesting. All right, let's do a little bit of gradient planning here. So if I've got, I'm going to make that smaller. If I've got a gradient and I've got these two different stops. So maybe I call it like stop 1. Oh, what's the shortcut? Yeah, stop 2. And then I think I can assign, oops, I think I can apply to the stops these, yeah, stop 1, stop 2. Okay, what else can I apply variables to in here though? It's just the color, not the location. That'll actually be really good because we could alias in, like, if we think of stop 1 as being the transparent end and stop 2 being the opaque end, stop 2 should reference, but it's going to maybe need different, like if we go back here, it will look different based on active and inactive. So we're going to need a couple of these. We'll have stop 1, stop 2 in these active inactive groups. So that's going to be part of the foreground. And we'll call it like foreground foreground default. We're going to still need that. I'll call it grad stop 1. Grad for gradient. And grad stop 2. And I kind of want to make sure there's room for all of this. Push this guy out. What's the width of this? 219. We'll call it 220. Make this 220 so everybody's even. Okay. Yeah. And then we take these, we copy them. They exist here as well. And they're part of the foreground. No, they're not. It's kind of part of the background. I think they're part of the background. Background. God, see, this is so much. I'm so glad that I'm doing this because, truth be told, I did try and start doing this like without streaming. I was trying to beautify, glow up this file using variables just without streaming it before. And I went straight into the variables and I got to a point where I was not confident that that like my directionality, I think I started with this kind of approach and I think I regretted it and I just stopped. I was like, oh my God, I invested all this time, all this work, and now I'm going to have to remap all of this into something like this, but the variables had already been created. That's what all these collections are. And it didn't feel good. And so I want to do this kind of planning because like I can quickly rename, move things around, and conceptualize the model, I guess. And like kind of take stock of what I have to build before, like, I think this is actually going to be the bulk. This is going to be at least half of the work. I think half the work will be planning in this space. And then the other half is just going to be execution, just like actually create the variables and assign the values and then alias them together. But this will be worth it. I think this will make things go faster. As with a lot of things, investing time up front often speeds you up in the long run. Like if you get too far ahead of yourself, you end up wasting time, or too far ahead too quickly. Okay. So what other pieces of anatomy? I do only have another 5 minutes. Stroke, right? Active tabs in Safari. I think this this highlight line is actually going to belong to the inactive tab. This is kind of like in Chrome, those little swoopy feet. And so I think when you have a tab that is inactive, but its neighbor on the left is active, that's when you get this vertical line. I don't think it's going to be up to the active tab to control that. So we are going to need, and that's a color thing, right? And that's going to be part of, well, it's not foreground or background. Like background and foreground, when I think of those, I think of like it's a fill, but what element are you applying it to? But stroke is just something else entirely. So we can have a color and it will be stroke. This is also good for scoping, right? Like oh my God, making sure that if something has like stroke in the title, I only want to apply it to things that have a stroke, or foreground and background only on fills, not on stroke. So stroke for active tabs, and stroke for inactive tabs. And again, I think we won't use it at all in Chrome and Firefox. So this is something that like, it's kind of a variable that we need for Safari, but we don't need for anything else. And so I think I'm gonna, oh wait, that's gonna be interesting because like when we build our tab component, right? Like if I take this, break it, make it a component tab, and then I want to set this in like I want to have that left stroke. I'm going to click content so that way that appears here. Oh, interesting. Like I can't target, I cannot, I don't have the right words, but like I can't target this with a variable. I can't say I want to apply a certain variable to the left and another variable to the right, nor can I like set up different strokes. But I will have that's going to be something though, is these could be variants. I know that I'm going to have a property again. This is why we do the planning. My tab is going to have a variant property called active neighbor, and there's going to be 3. So again, if we just prototype this active neighbor, I'll have one where there's none, like there is no active neighbor because you just have one tab open. In that case, it won't have a stroke. But when I do have an active neighbor on the left, which would be this one, left, right, because these are variants, I can change where this shows up. And that is great because then they can both be using the same variable. So yes, that does work. And I don't necessarily, because I'm only doing the color, I don't need to name it, I think, anything else other than stroke. And for Chrome, oh my gosh. Okay, so this is another thing. For these instances, these circumstances, I should say, because instance means something in Figma. In a circumstance where it really only belongs to one browser, like I don't need to have a nothing variable for, oh, but I do if there's only the one component, right? Like if I have a single tab component, I do need to define this. Well, no, hold on. Because this is not where it gets, okay, so Chrome doesn't have this. Firefox doesn't have this. So why would I make a variable for it? I think I would, if we change this to Safari, I do need this. I do need this in light and dark mode. But again, these variables here, these aren't even going to get applied to any frames or components. They are going to exist so I can define light and dark mode for Chrome, Firefox, and Safari tabs and, browser anatomy, but it's the browser variable collection that is actually going to be the one where these get applied to components and to frames. And so for Safari, yeah. I think I'm going to have this stroke variable. It'll live here. Actually, let's do it this way. This is going to get defined. Like I'll define my light and dark mode vertical strokes for a Safari tab up top. Right? Hold on. I got to do it this way. I need these. Okay, so here we've got like our Safari. Man, this is just, it gets so crazy. Too much to keep track of. Where did that go? So we've got color, stroke, right? Active and inactive, light and dark mode for Safari. So there's two stroke variables, right? Because yes, here, yeah, so this actually lives in here. Yeah. Active and inactive. Okay, and that's where the mapping can happen. Right, we will go, I'm gonna actually, I need to draw it with this arrow. So we have active stroke for Safari, active stroke for Safari. And it's actually gonna like pass through. Like it would only get populated if I just kind of draw this. Like it would get aliased in here, right? Because we're in the Safari mode, we've got the stroke. But for Chrome, it will be nothing. For Firefox, it will be nothing. Like I'll probably just do like flat white hex code, 0 opacity. Okay. Wow. We learned a lot about the value of planning. I'm going to be streaming tomorrow morning, probably a little bit later because it's a weekend, Saturday tomorrow, the 14th. I did not check to see if anybody joined the stream nor if I had comments. I need to make sure I set up that window next time, so apologies if anybody did tune in and you had questions or comments and I ignored you. My bad. Getting used to streaming again. Thanks so much for watching, and yeah, hopefully see you tomorrow. Have a good one.